Hello, I'm Christopher Stewart. A lot of my friends have a tendency to want me to do something for martial arts. There's a lot of problems I have with this because I don't have people. To properly demonstrate martial arts in a video for something like Facebook, what you really need is you need someone to run the camera. You need a person to help you demonstrate a style or a specific move. And you need a lot of space. And all three of these things I don't have. Okay? And if I went outside to a park and I set up my camera's sitting on a tripod. So if I went out to a park and did something, if I did a backflip, I'd be out of shot and you wouldn't even see what I just did. So that's part of the problem. That's why I don't do a lot of demonstration videos for martial arts. Also, when you start demonstrating martial arts, everyone wants to pick it apart. Everyone wants to suddenly argue with you, say this style works or that style works, and so on and so forth. And I don't like that part of martial arts. I want to stay away from that as much as possible. But there are a few things that I'd like to talk about with martial arts that a lot of people don't ever think about. The reason why a lot of people don't think about it is because they were trained in the United States. And United States dojos are good for teaching martial arts styles, they're good for self-defense, they're good for combat learning, but they're not good for really understanding combat. Okay? And the reason that is because I don't care what your style is. If you walk into a dojo and you learn a martial arts style, you're focused on learning the techniques of the style and you're focused on getting a point so that you can win a match, so that you can get a trophy. Everything is competition. It's all based on getting a point. Okay? And if it's not based on getting a point, it's based on the reality of self-defense, of let's say I'm in a park and I'm going to get mugged, will this technique save my life? Okay, and that's usually where it stops. That's where everybody in the United States pretty much ends. Okay, and a lot of it also comes from the fact that in the United States it doesn't take anything at all to gain the information. Okay, all you do is you find a dojo, you walk in, and you sit down, you pay your fee, you learn the style, and you leave. It doesn't take anything to actually learn it. Okay? Martial arts in other countries, in Japan, there's a point in studying Japan that a lot of people don't understand because a lot of people have never even experienced it. Okay? You have a sensei who walks up to you and says, "I will not teach you." Now, what are you going to do with that? An American will walk to another dojo. A Japanese will understand that you have to gain their trust and will work at trying to gain their trust so that in time they will learn. This is something that dates back to Middle Ages of Japan, but it's very seldom seen in some place like the United States. Okay? There was one time I sat outside a sensei's house in Japan, and that sensei every morning walked up to me and said, "I will not teach you." And for 3 days I stood outside of his house. And it was pouring rain. But in Japan, you can actually sit in the rain and not get freezing cold because it's a very nice climate in that sense. And his daughter would come out every night and she would give me a bowl of rice and she would give me some stir fry and things of this nature. And then one day he came up to me on like the third or fourth day and he asked, "What did the rain teach me?" And I had to give him an actual understanding of what I learned from standing outside of his house. And then I went in and started learning from him and started learning his style. Okay? That's something which is not done in the United States. It's not even understood in the US. The only way in the US you might even gain an inkling to this is by watching tons and tons and tons of martial arts films. Okay? And that's what I mean by it doesn't take anything to learn it. Okay? Now, what is the most important aspect of combat? What is your greatest weapon? Your mind. Your mind is your greatest weapon. If you don't have a good mind, you're going to fail no matter what. Okay? Everyone is so concerned with, will this technique work? Is that a good technique? Will this technique defeat that technique? Technique is technique. Your mind, how you apply it, that is what makes you a combat artist. Okay? It's all about the study in your head. If you sit there and you look at an opponent, okay, the opponent's in a stance. What are you looking at? Are you looking at the opponent? Are you thinking about what you are going to do to defeat that opponent? Or are you actually studying what the opponent is doing? That is what I mean by your mind. That is what I mean by technique and combat. This is not really taught in the United States. It's taught in theater more than it's taught in actual martial arts, because you have to be aware in the choreography in theater of what your opponent is doing. You have to keep the space going between you and your opponent. Because of that, you have to focus more on keeping the distance proper than you have to worry about actually hitting them. Okay? Theater can teach you more about martial arts than anything in the world, because you're not trying to connect. Okay? If you're not trying to hit somebody, your mind is free to think about everything happening around you. Now, what do I mean by all this? Most combat begins and ends in the first second of a glance. If I look at a swordsman, and that swordsman has yet to draw, and I have yet to draw, and I see his feet, and I realize that his feet are a fencer's stance, that there is not a small piece of paper that you could slip under his heel, then because of that minor technicality in his stance, I know I've beaten him already before I even draw. And I'll draw and I'll prove that I can cut him down in 5 seconds, because he's on the heels of his feet, not the balls of his feet. That is your mind. That is how effective a mind can be in martial arts. When you're looking at your opponent, you have to learn how to study your opponent from the aspect of, what is your opponent doing? Not where am I going to hit him, not what am I going to do to block, not what will he do like in a chess match. What are the errors in his position? Where is he looking? What is his stance? What's going through his mind? The more you can learn how to use your mind as a weapon, the better you are as a fighter, the better you are as a person. Thank you.